Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
When you see something like that, it is sort of jarring. And then I usually put myself in the footsteps of students who must have been walking past that and looking at that and having kind of the same questions that I had. How did this get here and how does it make me feel?
If you take a walk or take a look downtown Windsor at any point, it's pretty obvious that the people that care don't, or the people that should care don't. And I mean, that's all stuff that really needs to change and needs to change fast.
It's the new wave that's kind of going through. We're putting a big investment in right now. We're going to break ground probably next month, and we're going to have about 15 to 17 different chargers here at the dealership.
Thanks for joining us. A dress code poster targeting female students and featuring a pig has been taken down at a local high school. The chair of the Greater Essex County District School Board calls it a disturbing display, all while the public board has been talking about creating an equitable dress code across all of its schools. The CBC's Jason Vio joins us now live in studio with more. Jason, let's start with that poster. What exactly was on it?
Well, it was a handmade poster and put up by a teacher in a 9th grade math class. This was at Sandwich Secondary School in LaSalle. Take a look at this. And now, as you can see, there's a drawing of a pig and it says, quote, "Dressing inappropriately is like rolling around in manure. Sure, you'll get attention, but mostly from pigs." The sign also said no backs, no butts, no boobs, no bellies. And Alicia Higginson is chair of the public school board. Here's how she reacted when first seeing this.
First initial reading, it felt insulting. And then when we read it a few times, we could kind of see that there may have been some other way of getting at it. But the imagery on it and the language on it, to me was pretty disturbing and not a thing that I would want to see in our schools.
Now, we did hear back from the public school board administration as well. Excuse me, here's a bit of what they told us in an email. When this poster came to our attention, we deemed it inappropriate and it was taken down. The Greater Essex County District School Board is committed to safe, welcoming, and inclusive schools that respect the dignity of all students.
Jason, we mentioned earlier that the board is looking at a dress code policy. So what is in place right now?
Well, they don't have a board-wide dress code policy to begin with. Right now, each school kind of does their own thing. So trustees were talking about a new policy before this sign was circulated on social media. Now, though, they're looking at creating an interim policy as soon as possible, and then they'll take the time to create a more formal one.
Glad that this particular approach that we're going to be using is looking particularly at student dignity and looking at it from an equity lens. So there are certainly things that have happened that we've heard from our Greater Essex families, particularly in some of our racialized and marginalized communities that have caused harm as a result of enforcement of current dress code guidelines.
Now, in creating this new policy, Higginson says they want to listen to the community to help shape the new dress code, and she hopes by consulting a wide range of people, it'll provide them with some perspectives that perhaps they're missing.
Thanks for this, Jason. That's the CBC's Jason Vio live in studio for us tonight. We start tonight's election coverage in the riding of Chatham-Kent-Leamington, where the Ontario NDP are alleging the Liberals broke election rules. They say the Liberals incorrectly filled out the nomination papers for its candidate, Audrey Festeriga. She was added last minute after Alec Masaryk was removed last week. Nomination papers required the signatures of at least 25 electors in the riding, but the NDP alleged the Liberals just transferred the signatures gathered for Masaryk to Festeriga's papers, something the party says is not allowed under Ontario electoral rules.
It's pretty straightforward. We're looking for accountability. So we're asking Elections Ontario to investigate and disqualify the Liberal candidate in Chatham-Kent-Leamington. We think that this is unfortunately another example of Stephen Del Duca's Liberal Party's sense of entitlement. They've cut ethical corners to get this nominee on the paper, and we believe that that's disrespectful to residents in Chatham-Kent-Leamington, that they weren't willing to do the work needed to field a candidate and run a campaign here.
Elections Canada would not comment on complaints or investigations, but the Ontario Liberals say they are confident the nomination of Audrey Festeriga is perfectly valid. Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca spoke to this earlier today.
I think it's a really sad comment with 16 days left to go in this campaign that Ms. Horvath and the Ontario NDP have resorted to desperation tactics. I'm disappointed to hear that Ms. Horvath and her team want to continue to focus on attacking me and Ontario Liberals instead of trying to take the fight to Doug Ford.
We did reach out directly to Audrey Festeriga as well for comment, but did not hear back. With the election just weeks away, CBC Windsor is highlighting the regions in Windsor-Essex. And today we are in the Windsor West riding. You told us what issues matter the most to you, and our Jacob Barker took those concerns to the local candidates.
Many in Windsor-Essex have been focused on healthcare. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic began. As cases soared, healthcare workers went into overdrive. But the year before, 2019, the Ontario government passed Bill 124, which capped the salaries of public workers at 1%.
We have nobody with the experience and knowledge and wisdom to...
Julia Padden of Sandwichtown says more needs to be done to attract nurses and other medical professionals to stay in Windsor.
And new nurses aren't going to stay when the pay isn't sufficient to compensate for increasingly high patient loads, such high nurse to patient ratios that they can't do the basics.
Hi, I'm Linda McCurdy.
Linda McCurdy is a first-time candidate for the Liberal Party. She says the bill needs to be repealed, and that's something her government would do.
I think that COVID taught us something particularly about the health profession, that it's underpaid, understaffed, underappreciated. And to make sure that the nursing profession and people in the healthcare are paid appropriately, they have proper benefits, proper sick leave, that's going to attract more nurses to our area to be working in the hospitals.
What brought you into the city?
NDP candidate and incumbent Lisa Gretzky says her party actively opposed the bill when it came up in the Legislative Assembly. Her party, too, would repeal the bill immediately if they assumed power.
Directly attacks the collective bargaining rights of healthcare workers and limits their wages to a 1% increase when we're seeing inflation at least 5% now, which for our area, what that means is that nurses and other frontline healthcare workers are going to work across the border in the United States.
Well, I think a fantastic move has been done locally with the safe injection site.
The pandemic also saw a rise of deaths and overdoses from opioids. James Ray says he sees the issue around his home in downtown Windsor every day.
If you take a walk, take a look downtown Windsor at any point, it's pretty obvious that the people that care don't, or the people that should care don't. And I mean, that's all stuff that really needs to change and needs to change fast.
He would like to see the next government put more resources toward mental health and addiction services. McCurdy, who works as a criminal lawyer, says she hears about the problem firsthand.
My clients tell me that there is no facility here to treat addiction issues when it comes to opiate. So one of the things we have to do is treat this like the disease that it is. People who are addicted, particularly opiates and fentanyl and those kind of drugs that are killing people. I can't tell you how many people I know personally from my profession who have died over the last 2 years. We need to make sure that there's treatment facilities in the community to help them with their addiction issues.
Gretzky says the mental health and addiction services system is disconnected. She says her party plans to reorganize it.
What we need to do is be investing in the system to connect those services, and that's for both mental health and addictions. And we've made commitments to invest in those services and better connect them in our community and other communities like ours. And we've also committed to reducing the wait times for children's mental health.
CBC did reach out to Progressive Conservative candidate John Leontowicz. He did not respond. For more on this issue and to hear responses from the Green, New Blue, and Ontario Party, you can find those on our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. The provincial election takes place on June 2nd. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
In the latest update of the CBC News Ontario poll tracker, some polls suggest support for Doug Ford's PC party could be softening. However, if the election were held today, the PCs would still be heavily favored to win another majority. Let's bring in our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley, because he's looking at the path to that majority for the Progressive Conservatives. So, Mike, if the PCs win the election on June 2nd, does it really matter whether it's a majority or a minority?
Well, Katarina, for the PCs, this is an absolutely crucial difference. Winning a majority is the only way that Doug Ford can stay in power, and that's because all the opposition parties, the NDP, the Liberals, and the Greens, say they will not support a Ford minority. So if the PCs do not get that majority, as soon as they try to do anything in the legislature, like bring in a throne speech or pass a budget, they can expect to be defeated and the government would fall.
Okay, so what is the PC strategy to get that majority?
So the easiest way is to hang on to the seats they won last time. Now, they could add a few extra seats. They certainly have their eyes on a couple of seats in the Windsor area. But if you look at just the seats that they won last time, it was 76 ridings across Ontario. That is 13 more than they need for a majority. So the strategy here is to hold on to these by putting some special emphasis on protecting the ridings where they're the most vulnerable. Now, I have talked to the parties and analyzed the results from the last election. And what we see is that you can identify which seats are really the key. Now, it's these ridings here. If the PCs can hold on to most of these, it's safe to say that they are on their way to another majority. Now, this is a mix of ridings in various parts of the province. There are quite a number in Toronto and the GTA, but there's also a few in the Kitchener area. There's one seat in Ottawa and places like Peterborough and Barrie. You know, if there's a common thread here, Katarina, these are all seats that the Liberals held when they were in power, that the PCs managed to take in 2018 when that Liberal vote collapsed. And in many of these ridings, it was actually the NDP that came second last time.
Mike, which of these ridings in particular do you have your eyes on and why?
So I would start with Ottawa West Nepean. That's because this seat is the canary in the coal mine, really. It was the slimmest margin of victory for the PCs in the entire province last time. Jeremy Roberts, he won by just 1/3 of a percentage point. If he hangs on in this election, that would be a very good sign for Doug Ford's chances of a majority. So we'll definitely watch that race on election night. Then I would look to the PC-held ridings in Brampton and Mississauga. PCs won 2 seats in Brampton the last time, but both of them were by pretty narrow margins, one less than 500 votes. And Doug Ford showed how important Brampton is to him by kicking off his campaign there. And you know that it's competitive because we've also seen the NDP's Andrea Horwath there a lot. Now, Mississauga, it is a super important barometer. There's 6 seats here, and historically they tend to swing all together to whichever party it is that forms the government. So I'm going to be watching Mississauga very closely through the rest of the campaign and on election night, because if the other parties can't claw back at least some of those 6 seats from the PCs, it's honestly really hard to see how they have any realistic chance of holding Doug Ford to a minority.
Thanks so much for this, Mike. That is the CBC's Queen's Park reporter, Mike Crawley. It is time for another round of Voters Corner. We've heard from some of you on affordability, and now we turn to transportation. Though local public transit is operated municipally, the province still plays a key role in transportation overall, making it an election issue.
That's a very big thing. I feel like maybe because we are known as, the automotive hub of Canada, that maybe I think some citizens feel, I don't know if it's necessarily true, but some citizens I think in Windsor feel like they don't make public transportation a priority as a means to maybe incentivize you to get a car and things like that. And that's not really reliable for a lot of people. Even with me, I used to live in South Windsor with my family, and I ended up having to move down here just because I don't drive, and it was closer to the university, and public transportation from that end of Windsor to the university takes like an hour and a half when it would take you like 20 minutes driving. So
I'm really looking for a more planned approach towards our public transportation in the province. I think there's a lot of different platforms that were put forward by the parties, but I think there's a kind of a broader conversation that needs to happen about what the future of transportation looks like in this province.
And what would that look like for you?
More focus on public transportation and more options when getting between cities and within cities as well. I think we've kind of built our transportation system with the expectation that everyone owns a car and is using it to get around. And when that's the only reasonable option for people, everyone's going to do it. So it just makes it more congested when we're going on highways, and that's why some of the parties want more roads and highway infrastructure and some want more public transit.
City has a plan to grow. Let's grow cohesively, like what you call, I'm not a fancy on transportation, but integrated transportation. I want to use my bike, I want to use my bicycle, I want to walk down. Then it should be, without any gap, maybe 5-10 minutes, I should be able to hop on from one place to another. I drive, I got all the car I want, but I'm an engineer, I understand the greenhouse gas, I understand the carbon footprint. So many times I wish I could just come here by a city bus, even though I have a car. I mean, of course, I'll save money if I don't need a car, and then it's a sensible thing as a citizen I have to do, whether Liberal Party tells me, NDP tells me, PCP tells me or not. But as an individual, it's my responsibility. I want to leave this place better for my kids and for my grandkids.
And to share your perspective with us, if you want to be featured on Voters Corner, you can fill out the survey on our website. You can just go to the latest election article and scroll down to find it. So that is at cbc.ca/Windsor. If you're planning on buying a new electric car in Ontario, be prepared to wait several months, if not years. EV supply is something the provincial parties are talking about now that the campaign is in high gear, with different promises to address the shortage. Philippe de Montigny has the details.
Alain Liard recently got his new electric car, a Tesla he ordered back in August.
So it took about 6 months before, from the time I placed my the order. Everybody's excited to get their vehicle when they purchase one. You want to get it right away. It's unfortunate that we have to wait.
Dealerships across Ontario, like this one in the Sudbury region, are struggling to get electric vehicles.
Electric vehicles is hard to gauge because you could place your order and you could wait a couple years, or you could wait under a year, right? Just because of the demand and because there's lacking inventory.
The microchip shortage is taking its toll and causing delays across the entire auto sector. But the lack of EV sales policy and rebates is leaving Ontario with very little supply.
A ZEV standard or a ZEV mandate, which is what you're referring to when, if you want to sell gas cars, you have to sell a certain percentage of EVs. And they have that in BC, they also have it in Quebec, and it makes a difference. We've seen it make a difference.
Both provinces also offer rebates to buyers. In BC, electric vehicles made up nearly 12% of new registrations last year. In Quebec, it was almost 9%. Ontario trails behind at 3%.
People in Quebec buy 3 times more electric cars per capita than Ontario, and in BC it's 4 times more. So Ontario really has to step up to the plate.
New Democrats, Greens, and Liberals vow to impose similar ZEV mandates or sale quotas on automakers. The three parties also promised to bring back a rebate for buyers. Doug Ford's Progressive Conservatives refused to do so. For them, increasing supply will come from historic investments to modernize Ontario's auto plants and build electric and hybrid models in the coming years. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
And coming up later in the show, we will look at a local car dealership that's making big changes to pave the way for EVs. And right after the break, will we get a break from all of this rainy grayness? Colette will be here with our full weather forecast. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy is here now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, it is not nice outside. So how long are we going to have to deal with that?
Yeah, as I was saying there in the commercial break, looking just at the METARs of the reporting station of hour after hour. So it's showers, showers, showers. So yes, cool, wet kind of day. We're going to see things really turning around, though, through the next couple of days. It's not lost on me, though, that this isn't just a weekend coming up. This is a holiday weekend coming up. So we got to talk about that. Our showers are going to taper off overnight tonight, and then only a slim chance late tomorrow of an isolated shower that I see. I actually see some nice clearing for us. So warming up as that sun comes in, but also becoming a little more humid, so prepare for that. And then I say split holiday weekend. What I mean by that is we are going to have times where the weather's just fine, and then we are going to have some storminess go through, and also split in terms of the temperatures, starting off hot and humid and then becoming cool and more comfortable. Kind of something for everyone. We could just look at it like that. These are those current cooler readings that we're looking at on the thermometer, and some of that rain as it's passed in and really hugging along the north shore of Lake Erie here. As that energy moves through, watch the timeline here. So we really see most of it gone even by 2 a.m. Now, there could be a few lingering showers not being picked up really by this model. I think that it is possible it's actually going to linger a little bit later than that, but generally we'll see ourselves drying out through the overnight. Then we get into some of that clearing. The sun comes out, and then see this, just a little bit of volatility that a few pop-ups could happen, and that's why I'm only putting the chance of showers tomorrow afternoon at 30%. Friday, though, this is in the overnight. Thursday, tomorrow night, into Friday morning. Could have a few little thunderstorms just rumbling through in the overnight hours. Pretty isolated there, too. What it won't be isolated, and what I want to show you, is this will be the line along the cold front. That's going to come through kind of, right now the timing looks like midday Saturday, and I want you to know about that because that will be important with any outdoor plans. What's left to come through? Yeah, 5-6 millimeters or so, that's all, because we are going to be drying out. A look at your overnight temperatures. In some cases, actually, they'll come up a little bit, and then what we're seeing for tomorrow is a high of 25, for Friday 30, and I'll tell you that it is going to feel, Katarina, like we're in the mid to upper 30s. Short-lived, but still it's there.
Short-lived, but we'll soak it up while we can. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we are going to take a look at how a local car dealer is preparing for EVs of the future. Stay with us. Welcome back. The shortage of EVs is very much a Windsor issue. At least one local car dealership is gearing up to start selling more electric vehicles. Jacob Barker stopped by Premier Chevrolet Cadillac Buick GMC to learn about the major upgrades that it is working on, which include up to 17 new charging stations on site.
We have to make sure our facilities can handle it. We've changed transformers. We're putting in a second transformer here at the dealership so we can make sure that we can power all the vehicles that are going to be delivered to us in the coming years here. So it's a big investment. A lot of the talks behind the scenes with General Motors is all EV. The Cadillac lineup's going to be fully EV. There's going to be multiple different charging stations available. There will be home ones for the consumer, but we have commercial ones here that we have to have for even employees that are going to have EV vehicles, our service department, and our delivery bays here as well.
Are you selling them?
We're not selling them currently. Down the road, I'm not sure that that's something that the manufacturer may get into or may not get into. The only question I do get is, what about charging stations for home? So we're going to try and set up with a couple different electrical companies and just a referral basis, because there's going to be a demand, and when all these cars do hit the lot, there's going to be people that need to put the EV chargers in their home garages and things like that. So there's going to be a demand, and we're going to try and have a few directions for consumers to go to.
An amateur baker from Britain has one more reason to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
It's a lemon and Swiss roll amaretti trifle. We've got lemon curd Swiss roll at the bottom, St. Clement's jelly, so orange and lemon jelly, lemon custard, mandarin coulis made with tinned mandarins, amaretti biscuits in between there.
That is Gemma Melvin, a copywriter by day and passionate baker in her spare time. She took top prize in the Platinum Jubilee Pudding Contest after whipping up her lemon and Swiss roll amaretti trifle. She beat out 5,000 other amateur bakers for the win and says she drew inspiration for her dessert from her grandmother, whose signature dish was trifle. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for watching, and have a good night.